Hello everybody and welcome to the WAM Show. I'm your host Josh Segerton, of course from World Alternative Media, and I'd like to kind of give you guys a bit of an intro on what this show will be. Now, we see in the mainstream media that there are actual laws restricting the mainstream media from covering certain stories through House resolutions in the United States. We've seen things like Operation Mockingbird, where the government has completely taken control of the mainstream media. So it's our job to bring the stories that they aren't telling forward to you. Now, I'm going to start with a bit of a monthly update on what's happening in the news. So, Winnipeg Police just bought a $343,000 armored vehicle. One would expect in a war zone. So, here's the thing about that. When we introduce a police state into a society like Winnipeg, which really is a two-horse town, despite the skyscrapers, we're just asking for trouble. Now, what would these vehicles be used for? We are looking at this kind of vehicle that we would expect in Afghanistan, and actually this has been happening a lot throughout the United States and Canada. These false terror threats based on these guys that are armed and funded and trained by the United States government, the British government, and the Canadian government. They're spreading all this fear in the mainstream media about these kinds of people. But in the end, who are these people really? They are nothing but in the pocket of the CIA. And now they're bringing these kinds of vehicles onto the streets to try and control protests, using that as an excuse. We've seen this as well in Keene, New Hampshire, where a couple of years ago they bought a $285,933 armored tank, and it was to protect a local pumpkin festival from terrorism. Now, I'm just thinking of, backwoods, New Hampshire. I don't really expect a terrorist threat at a pumpkin festival there. I expect a lot of children doing, face painting. I think the idea is completely absurd. So that's something that we will continue to be looking over at World Alternative Media. Also in the news, Winnipeg, as many of you guys know, is a major tax grab city for parking enforcement, and the city has just acknowledged that thousands of tickets issued during the winter parking bans are illegal. Now, the really messed up thing about this is that there will be no refunds for those that have already paid. So, of course, the city just said, oops, sorry, we broke the law, but oh well, we're taking your money. If any of us took, some money off of a guy that's walking down the street saying, you can't park there, we'd go to jail. That would be called robbery. But when the government does it, of course it's all right. Of course, I'm kidding. It is not all right. And we have spoken with people like Wise Up Winnipeg's Todd Dubé, who has told us that dual speed signs in Winnipeg are banned. Now, this is when you have a speed sign on both sides of the road. And the whole idea is that if one sign is blocked off on one side, you can see the sign on the other side, so you can assess the speed limit and slow down. But as we've seen, police cars will park a block ahead and wait for a car to just break the speed limit by a little bit, and then they'll pull them over and grab their money. And we know several officers, who I won't necessarily name in this episode, but you can look forward to me naming a few bad eggs in the future, who are making up to $160,000 a year just from these quotas, just from screwing the average Joe over by taking his money because he was going a little bit over the limit. We know that these kinds of things actually cause more accidents than they solve. Also in the news, our puppeted leaders are still working out a way to tax us and control us more in Paris for the climate summit. This is something that we have to be looking into very deeply because they do want to tax us on our carbon. Carbon is a solid, by the way, folks, and carbon dioxide is the tree of life, as I call it, because without it, we would not have forestry, we would not have trees, we would not have the kind of abundance of fauna, etc., that we do with an excess, so they call it, amount of CO2. Now, Obama is continuing to arm and train ISIS or ISIL in the Middle East, and despite fighting against them allegedly, which is really interesting because all major terrorist groups over the past 60 years worked or were created by the West. Now, I'll give you a bit of an example. There's going from the Iranian missile coup to Saddam Hussein, and the Ba'athist Party was armed twice by the United States government. Osama bin Laden was armed through the Mujahideen in 1979, which became Al-Qaeda, and they continued to get funding and training from the United States government even up to the point where Osama bin Laden was the most wanted man in the world. Isn't that interesting? We also can't forget the Taliban met in the White House, were armed, trained, and funded. We also can't forget about things like the Muslim Brotherhood. And of course, right now, right here, what we are seeing, and one of the most dangerous things in this world, and also what they're using to fearmonger everybody, is ISIS.
So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
Armed, funded, and trained by the United States government. Admitted. 1 week Obama will go on TV and say that he is arming ISIL insurgents. The next week he says we need to fight against this terrorism. This is really messed up. This is Twilight Zone stuff, people. So this is something that we will continue to look into as well, and we'll probably bring great guests onto the show to talk about this issue as well. So Trudeau also, by the way, just to bring this into a Canadian perspective, claimed that he was going to train some more rebels, creating even more of a perpetual problem. So that's been the news from this month. Stay tuned for Glenn Price coming up next. All right, now we're here with Glenn Price from Your Medical Cannabis headquarters, which was just renamed, actually. Can you tell us what that name is?
Your Medical Cannabis Lounge, Head Shop, and Education Center.
Oh, awesome. Now, we'll be asking you later on about what you're going to be doing there, but I wanted to start off by saying, now that Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister, and he did back your shop, what do you think is going to come of this kind of so-called red wave, which, by the way, when other countries say, the country's turning red, it usually means something totally different. It usually means the country's turning communist. So I want to make sure that, we're able to hold Trudeau as much accountable as possible with what he has claimed, because he did come to Winnipeg and say that he was going to be supporting your shop. Now, what have you heard from the Liberals since?
Not much, just what they've said on the news and stuff. Hopefully Trudeau, like you said, back my store. Mm-hmm. I believe the people of Canada that are educating people now are the people that the government should be looking for questions on this industry.
And for those that don't know, actually, I should mention, Glenn Price went through a living hell over the last year when police raided his shop and confiscated a whole bunch of stuff that's very important to you. Yeah. And,
literature.
And you have about 700 customers that come to your store. So can you tell us a bit about how this is affecting them and what kind of ailments you see the most in your shop?
Most ailments lately, the last month and a half, of cancer patients in their 60s and 70s, looking how to get information where I'm there to give the information, knowledge, and show them the right path to go down to get their medical documents, where to go get proper medicine, because the government LPs ain't got it.
Yeah. Now, you've been charged with drug trafficking, possessing a scheduled substance for the purpose of trafficking, possessing the proceeds of property obtained by crime, and possessing a scheduled substance. This just makes me kind of laugh because it's so ridiculous that you're facing these charges for giving medical patients, people with cancer, people with MS, people with serious
chronic
ailments.
pain, fibromyalgia, glaucoma, the list goes on and on.
And you're trying to provide them a great service that makes their life easier, and you get shut down, and with that, they get shut down, basically, too.
Yeah, they're back to the black market where the federal government has failed us all. And I keep saying this. It's the federal government that brought this to light, that we could use it for medical cannabis. We're supposed to have free and easy access. Now, where's free easy access in Winnipeg, Manitoba? There isn't.
No, and
unless you go to Delta 9.
Yeah.
And like when I got arrested, I had to go get signed up with Delta 9 because the judge didn't believe the document that I had was legit. So I did. It took me 3 weeks, 2 days before I got medicine in my hands.
Yeah.
So how is that free, easy access?
And I need to make mention of this. Obviously, the legalization of marijuana is a good thing. However, the word legal is very specific. Legal is, no pun intended, a legal word. Therefore, it means that it is controlled. It isn't free, it's controlled. Now, a lot of people have been fighting for a long time for marijuana to become something that you could do freely without having to worry about going to jail for. And I've glanced over the Liberal Party of Canada's policy, which by the way is extremely short and extremely vague on what their marijuana policy will be. So they started off by basically claiming that they are trying to keep the prison industrial complex, out of our lives and everything. But then you read into it a bit more and they say, to ensure we keep marijuana out of the hands of children and the profits out of the hands of criminals, we will legalize, regulate, and restrict access to marijuana. They went on to say, we will remove marijuana consumption and incidental possession from the criminal code and create new, stronger laws to punish more severely those who provide it to minors, those who operate a motor vehicle while under its influence, and those who sell it outside of the new regulatory framework, so more government talk, of course. Then they go on to say, we will create a federal, provincial, territorial task force, and with input from experts in public health, substance abuse, and law enforcement, we'll design a new system of strict marijuana sales and distribution with appropriate federal and provincial excise taxes applied. Now, what I wanted to bring up with this is that you have a private business. You are selling this very much needed medicine to patients at a private level. You don't work for the government, right?
No.
So
No, I don't. And like I said, they want to call criminal enterprise. I don't know what criminal enterprise. When I started the dispensary, I said any money that I make from the dispensary, I want to donate back to the community. Now tell me what other criminal organization would donate the profits from the dispensary back to the community, to the people who could use it, like Slow Mission. I donated $500 to Slow Mission. Not me, the group as a whole, we did.
Yeah.
And that's what Winnipeg wanted. We want to give back to the community by letting us have free, easy access to a store like mine where you can come in and get knowledge. Make sure your product is good. Where Delta 9 says my product is could be contaminated, could be this, could be that. Listen, I'm 54 years old. I smoked pot since I was 9. So I've been smoked pot for 40 years. There was no government LP 40 years ago.
Yeah.
People, wake up.
Yeah.
It's a plant. No matter who grows it, you can smoke it. And yes, there is people that have mold and issues in it, but dispensaries like ours did our due diligence to make sure that we had a proper product.
And they'll do anything to try and discredit you, of course. And you mentioned criminal enterprise, and I know of one criminal enterprise. Now, as Glenn mentioned, he's giving to charity. He's trying to, help the community, help people with ailments. You know what a real criminal enterprise looks like? It's an enterprise that uses people's heartstrings to gain popularity, demagogue, if you will, and then tax people and steal their money because they want to smoke pot, regulate over the top. Their hands are in your pockets, folks, and I wanted to get into the fact that with legalization comes the monopoly. We all have the right to smoke marijuana if we want. That is our right. As long as we're not hurting anybody, it shouldn't matter. And I always say, liberty. The only person in the world you have control over is yourself. And if you can't have control over yourself, what's the point? Now, going into this kind of regulatory framework that the government is claiming but not going into detail on, I'm a little bit worried that monopoly is going to be created where in 1985 you could get a quarter ounce for $60. Today you get it for $60. The market has stayed level largely over the last 30 years. Now with legalization, we're looking at a sudden possible double in the price.
I hear $19.95 a gram, and I don't know if that's for recreational or medical, but if it's for medical, I could imagine what recreational is going to be.
Well, how much does it take to produce, say, a couple pounds?
If you're producing it, you could sell it for $3 a gram and still make money. Where the government LPs are selling it for $15. What kind of money are they making, people?
Yeah, and this is going to like laws.
Gouging.
Yeah, we see.
I don't see them giving back. I didn't see one government LP say, look, we'll donate some of our money that we made millions back to the community, to people that can use it. For instance, we had a house fire here in Manitoba, in Winnipeg, on Dufferin. If I was still running, people like that, they don't have insurance. Where are they going? They're going to the street.
Yeah.
I could have given money to get a hotel room. There you go. Here's money. Go rent the whole house tomorrow. Then people like that, when it happens, they wouldn't have. They'd come to me because they know I'd get back to the community.
Yeah, and we're looking at things like, for example, the liquor laws, the LC laws, where cigarettes. Now, this is the greatest example of this is tobacco, where we have, obviously it's legal, but it's heavily regulated, and it takes you like $1 to produce a pack of that, but they're selling it in some cases $17 to $20. Yeah. And I'm just worried that this is going to completely take over the marijuana market, and I'm worried for your store because, as Trudeau said, that he supported your store. Do you think that these laws are going to negatively affect your store if there's heavy regulation?
Well, if there's heavy regulation like conservatives wanted, that we have to stand up and fight. But don't forget, Manitoba election this year.
Yeah.
Time to make noise, people. Time to stand up. Let's find out what Manitoba really wants. Let's pressure these MPs. Let's start writing to our MPs.
Yeah.
Finding out what kind of regulation, what kind of restriction. It should be a mom and pop show because we're the people out there on the front lines educating the people now where the federal government should have been educating the people a long time ago.
People keep saying privatize as a dirty word because they're thinking big corporations like McDonald's or Walmart. We're talking about family-owned businesses that are just trying to help the community and bring money to the community as well and be able to help people at the same time. And this is where it goes way off course because when everything government touches turns to crap, and I say that, that's my personal opinion. And I feel like the same thing's gonna happen here because you have your shop, and with this kind of regulatory framework, what are the chances that perhaps government or LPs are going to be selling marijuana at their shops at a cheaper price than yours to monopolize your business?
LPs can't sell cheaper than the people that are in this industry open dispensaries right now. They can't keep up to the people that the medical demand, and they're getting all excited for the recreational, but they can't even keep up to the medical, so what are they getting excited for the recreational?
Yeah.
Like the government, it's government trying to monopolize.
Yeah.
And they can't monopolize this industry because if they do, it'll be screwed.
Yeah, and Trudeau, of course, has caused a bit of panic here because he did run basically beforehand saying that he wanted stricter laws against marijuana crimes, and then changed that quite quickly to he wants to legalize and regulate. And I'm just kind of seeing it as more of demagoguery, which is doing, as a politician, saying things that will get you elected out of the popular vote. And we see right now, since he's been in office, there are raids and he's standing by.
And many rates, that's what I'm asking now. Like I've been on the phone to the Liberals of Manitoba. I want to have talks with them. Do they want to know what the people of Manitoba want? Or do they want to know what the government wants?
Yeah.
Because if they know, we know Greg Selinger, what he wants. He wants government to monopolize, to put a medicine in LPs. Now, if that's the case, let's start moving drugstores into liquor stores, right? Because they want to sell medicine in a liquor store. So let's bring our drugstores and liquor stores together, and then we can sell it that way if that's the way the government wants to.
Yeah, but I mean, preferably we keep government out of it and bring money to the economy, bring jobs to the economy,
New
and
industry,
all that kind of stuff.
New
to
jobs.
profit.
For instance, here.
Well,
Here's
that's what
a
happened.
grinder. A guy, Manitoba guys,
Mhm.
come up with this idea. It's for people that have a hard time with mobility.
Yeah.
It's so easy to work, just like that.
Mhm.
You put your butt in, grinds your butt, comes apart completely.
Yeah.
This is just a prototype. Apparently it's going to be on the market in April. Come to my shop, 1404 Main Street. I have one right here.
Absolutely.
It'll be at my shop. Anybody can come and take a look at it. The guys are looking for more input on design ideas and different ideas. So let's support local.
Absolutely. You don't see people raiding
And
a
it's
business
called the
that made
Clipper.
that. Well, and actually, there have been a lot of questions that have been coming in off the internet about this because we asked for your questions, and Dave says or asks, how many plants can I grow? And for that, I brought up, I believe it's going to be 6, Dave, but I brought up some examples from around the world where in Alaska, the laws are 21 and up. Grow up to 6 plants in home as long as no more than 3 are flowering. Can't smoke in public. Shops can't legally sell for recreational use until the state legislature creates regulations expected next year. Possession of less than 4 ounces in public is punishable by up to a year in prison or a $10,000 fine. Possession of 4 or more ounces could land you in jail for up to 5 years and or result in a fine of up to $50,000. And it's almost the same in Colorado where 21 and up, 1 ounce, no registration system, can't be consumed in public, 6 plants, 3 in flower stage. So, I mean, why can't we just finally be set free and allowed to do things as long as we're not hurting anybody? Like,
Exactly. We weren't hurting anybody. I wasn't hurting anybody when I had my dispensary running. Like, you know, for instance, you start talking about this. There's a judge in BC. A guy got caught growing 401 plants. What did the judge say? It was our laws are antique, like they got to be changed.
yeah.
Guy told discharge for 401 plants, and that's a judge.
Yeah.
Like our laws should be straight across Canada. How can they do? For instance, that's what I want to know. And I was misinformed or whatever. But how can Vancouver have 100 dispensaries that are running no problem? Toronto's got dispensaries. Montreal's got dispensaries. There's other places in Canada that have dispensaries that are running. But as soon as you open one up in Manitoba, you get raided and closed. You open one up in Saskatoon, you get raided and closed. Edmonton got raided and closed. Why are they attacking us across the prairies? Why?
And it is something I should mention that apparently, and I don't quite believe this, but apparently Winnipeg has the lowest amount of people arrested for marijuana crimes. That recently was in the Free Press. I don't know how much that is actually true because Winnipeg has been seen by most people in the marijuana business to be a really bad place for, you know, and of course yourself, you know.
Like, I found that out after I opened. I was ignorant of politics and everything else. And the people that I met across Canada, they pat me on the back and they said, "You're from Winnipeg and you did that?" Like, I
remember Mark Emery was one of the people that said, like, "Oh man, like Winnipeg, like good luck."
Well, they couldn't believe it, but like the people are showing the government, the people should be controlling this. They're still going to make tax. Look at Colorado. People, look at Colorado. Give it to the mom and pops.
Yeah.
They're going to collect tax. We're going to have a whole new industry of people growing. People. I was on the internet. Colorado, soccer mom.
Yeah.
Here, she's one of the biggest growers in Colorado. Yeah. She's a soccer mom. Come on.
But one of the big things that we face is we have to free the weed completely because
it's got to be free.
There shouldn't be a difference between having 1 ounce and being okay, and then having 4 ounces and suddenly going to prison for a couple of years. It just that's just so absurd, and I think that people have to realize. Oh, what? You're going to create a giant black market in a legal environment? I don't think so.
Look, it's been black. Was illegal, criminal to have pot for my whole lifetime.
Yeah.
If they haven't did anything in 54 years to get rid of the black market, the way to get rid of the black market is give it to the mom and pop shop.
Absolutely.
So we can sell it for $3 a gram to people that need it.
Yeah.
Where is the black market going to survive at $3 a gram? The LPs can't do it now.
No.
They're, for instance, Tilray. I'll talk about Tilray. I hate them.
Okay.
That's where I first got to try to get signed up. It took me over 3 months.
Mhm.
I got pissed off and told them, send my documentation back, I'll go somewhere else, you're nothing but liars.
Yeah.
But while I was waiting the 3 months, they come out with a new product called green crack wheat.
Yeah.
Started at $8 a gram.
Yeah.
It got popular.
Oh,
Over-
for good
overnight.
reason.
Overnight,
Yeah.
from $8 to $15. And that's government.
Yeah.
So, you tell me what constitution that raise of $8, what were they doing different to that plant after it or before it? Like, they're still
No,
growing it the same way, but they're gouging the people, charging them $8 more a gram.
It doesn't make any sense in a free market, and actually, like green crack, you might actually bump into that quite a lot on the streets, and it is, you know, still $10 a gram, you know. So I don't know. I'm just thinking like when the black market, it sucks, you know, because it's illegal. But shouldn't we have a way of bringing the free market from the black market out into the legal market?
I tried in Winnipeg. I tried my best. I did everything that I knew how to do in the guidelines, government, proper occupancy permit, proper Manitoba registration business, proper this, proper that. I tried. I tried bringing it on the black market and giving the proceeds back to the people.
Yeah.
And I was shown that Winnipeg, if you want to do something like this, you should have kept your mouth shut and kept it underground.
And that's the way it is in Winnipeg. We're
And
such
it
an
shouldn't be-
apathetic city too.
It shouldn't
you
be.
know?
It shouldn't be. It should be right out in the open where we're not doing nothing wrong. We weren't hurting anybody. I had people in my shop, 20, 30 people. Now, and they were all sitting peacefully. Anytime we did a demonstration,
Yeah.
it was always a peaceful demonstration.
Yeah.
Even in front of the police station when we went and smoked up that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe in smoking pot outside. That's why I opened a shop for
Yeah.
people to come. Yes, you'll catch me smoking outside at things like that, but usually don't.
Yeah. Well, something that I find very interesting, and you've told me a bit about it before, you have an excellent idea for what you're going to be doing with your shop going into the new year and on from there. Can you tell our viewers a bit about that?
Want to start a games room and a lounge and try and bring in some live music to start bringing in, and best value for glass in Winnipeg I want to try. You know, where can you go buy a glass pipe for $6 or a bong for 30, right?
And what a great environment too, to have kind of like a bar setting, but not with the alcohol
No
where people are
alcohol.
falling over each other. Because you can, like, when your girlfriend says, I don't want to go out tonight, you know, I don't want to end up in some place where a bunch of guys are hitting on me and then there's someone throwing up over there and falling over here. With your idea, you can come chill out, watch some live music,
Right.
you know, and enjoy yourself in kind of a much more reasonable environment.
Yeah, like your big living room.
Yeah.
Except for you have some company that's over, whoever dropped in's over, and you know, you can discuss different things, different ways of medicating, because not all people medicate the same. I've got people coming in asking me, they don't smoke, what way to medicate, and people that don't smoke are saying, well, I hear vaporizing is the best way. Well, it's still smoking to me. So.
Well, you know what? It's an excellent idea, because we need to start thinking of these kinds of business plans for the future in this legal, so-called legal marijuana kind of environment.
Right.
So what are you going to be continuing to do in order to kind of lobby the, you know, the Liberal government and so on?
Keep phoning them to see if they'll sit down with me, and if they don't, then I'm going to start speaking up that, hey, I back the Liberals, they back me, I back them, now I need them to come out and say what they're going to do here in Manitoba.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to monopolize. I want, like they're saying, if they win, they're going to make LCs so that I can go own an LC.
Yeah.
But how easy is that? Are they going to let their friends line up
Yeah.
first, or are they going to let me in line first? Because if there's a dispensary ever open in Winnipeg, I hope I'm the first one in line, because I'm the first one in Winnipeg that came out.
Yeah.
And or my company.
Yeah.
I might not be able to own the company, but I still own the company. I can give it to my daughter or my grandson
Yeah.
to run in the future, right?
Yeah.
And all I want to do is be able to go back to helping people
Yeah.
of Winnipeg.
Of course, and I want to also mention before we go to our next segment that you and I showed up in Saskatoon there a few months ago for the Prairie Medicinal Harvest Cup, where people like Mark Emery and Dana Larson, Redbeard, the Beard Brothers. The most amazing environment I've seen, where people are partying, but like in such a peaceful manner because they have this really kind of relaxing
environment.
And it was such an incredible thing. What do you think are the chances of anything like that ever coming to Winnipeg?
If I could find a space, I think we could pull it off.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking for a space. Anybody's got a space big enough to allow us to vape in and hold a 3-day party? And I can guarantee it'll be peaceful. Nothing will be broken. And people across Canada, lots of tourism.
Yeah.
I know we could pull it off if we'd find a space, because Jeff told me he'd come down and show us how to.
From Skunk Funk.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make the point because it's kind of hilarious. Was that when I was there, I was in the middle of this insane hot box that is just a great example of what marijuana really is. Is ounces were smoked in a garage, and we were just kind of jammed in there with the smoke for hours. And I thought I was like, I couldn't think anymore. But the funny thing is, I went to sleep for a couple hours after that, got up, had to take a bus back to Winnipeg. Not a single hangover, not feeling it anymore, It's like, this is the kind of example that I want to bring to people, is this is a totally harmless thing. Yes, we shouldn't be handing it to children, but I'm serious when I say this. It has some of the most beneficial properties of any plant I've ever heard of in my life. Maybe even the most.
Yeah, well, I believe it is the most, because I've seen it help so many people, from fibromyalgia, chronic pain, cancer, all kinds of things. And I believe keep it out of the hands of the kids. Like you couldn't get medicine out of my shop unless you had proper documentation.
Yeah, and there's also a lot to say about parental discretion as well. Like parents have to do what they do to be responsible and make sure
to help keep it out of the kids' hands. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Glenn, I really appreciate you coming by the WAM Show. This is the first episode, so I'm excited. He was actually in the first ever WAM World Alternative Media video, so I'm glad he could join me for the first World Alternative Media show.
Well, I'm glad you invited me down here.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad to have you. And we will be continuing to talk about monopolization when we come back with John Doull and in our next segment, so stay tuned.
Thanks.
All right, now we are here with John Doull, and he is a voluntarist. He's done a ton of work for World Alternative Media for over a year now. I consider him a good friend, and we have him here to talk about some very interesting stuff that's going on with patent laws, government monopolies, the difference between corporatism and capitalism, etc., etc. It's something that needs to be talked about because no one in the media talks about this. It's something that's kind of left to the shadows, to the more voluntarist crowds or libertarian crowds out there that, you just don't see it too much. So, John, what did you think of the segment we just did with Glenn and the monopolies that are involved in the marijuana market?
Well, it's a perfect example. Because as you guys were saying, I mean, it's been a black market for decades, and despite all the problems with black markets and the fact that gangs that are into some bad stuff end up getting involved in things like that, they're also essentially free markets.
Yeah.
Because yes, there is shady government involvement in the drug trade, as we know, with the CIA
and trafficking.
Yeah,
it's mostly cocaine, though.
Yeah, but in general, it's basically just a free market, and as you pointed out, the same price has been preserved for 30 years for marijuana, and so when government gets into that, they just see a big industry that they can carve up and monopolize, and that's what's really sad about that issue is everybody's so happy that it's finally legal. But as you pointed out, we have to think about the idea of legalization, and where was the state getting the right to tell people that they couldn't grow a plant in the first place? And why do we accept that? And, you know, if they're going to say that it's legal to grow if you're giving a bunch of tax money to the government and going under their system, but it's not legal to grow if you're just growing it in your own backyard or your own basement or whatever, then it's not really freeing the plant.
And it's really, like, it's another example of how hard it is to just completely get out of the coerciveness of government, where they have to put their hands on everything that we touch. And it's something that actually leads me in with the monopoly of marijuana that goes something else, and that is the pharmaceutical industry. Now, there are huge monopolies in this market, and one I wanted to bring up was diaprim. Now, diaprim, as many of you might know, was being sold at 5,000% of the original price. It was inflated by the company that bought them out. Now, a lot of people were blaming capitalism for this, and we'll explain soon how we don't actually see capitalism in society today because of government monopolization. But diaprim's a great example because that wasn't capitalism. That was actually the ownership of an idea or intellectual property, which goes with the patent laws. And they were able to seize like one bit of chemistry and be able to sell it or jack up the price 5,000%. So what do you think of what's going on with diaprim?
Well, I mean, as you point out, I mean, in a freer economy, if they, like, what was it, $700 they jacked up the price of one diaprim to, or something insane like that, from like $5 or something like that. It's been a while since I read the articles about it. But, you know, in anything else that we can think of, for the most part, if somebody's trying to sell something for that ridiculous price, then their competitors are just going to come along and say, well, here, we'll keep giving it to you for a reasonable price, and the problem is solved. But as you point out, yes, because of the patenting arrangement, they were the only ones able to produce diaprim. So the state basically gives them a monopoly on it, and there's no competition to regulate things.
And that's monopolized demand. I mean, you can't compete in a market where only one person can own that, you know, patent on that chemistry. And we see things like that in Monsanto as well. And I wanted to mention my sort of idea for patent laws is, like, from a voluntarist, kind of more libertarian standpoint, to get out of the government's hands and into the individual's hands, there's still a lot of problems. And this is something that we have to look at objectively, as I'm sure you know because we've spoken about this. So we have patents where, you know, people can own ideas. Now, what if people were to be able to patent what they have invented, spent millions of dollars, say, creating a product, and they don't want someone to come in and take that product and sell it, and just steal their idea? Obviously, I understand there's a huge issue with that. So what I always kind of thought was, perhaps maybe we should just patent it while they're making the product, and then once they release it for the world so other companies can come in and have their own demand based on how good their product is. And that is a basis of an economy. But then there's things with intellectual property and the music industry where, you know, as you've mentioned before to me, people are making money off of other people's music. Can you go into that a bit?
Yeah, well, it's patent law and all this stuff is really complicated because, I mean, as voluntarists or libertarians, we can see a lot of the problems with it, but we can also understand how it can legitimately protect people as well. So the moral questions that we really get into are, can you, as somebody who creates a certain object using a certain method, can you own that and really say that nobody else is able to produce the same thing themselves? And I believe that you can't. I have a little quote here that I wanted to read.
Yeah, sure.
It's from an article by Stephen Kinsella, which appeared on Mises, I'm sorry, Mises.org. so named after Ludwig von Mises. And he says, individuals create wealth by using their intellect, creativity, and labor to transform already owned scarce resources into more valuable configurations. In a free society, a producer owns the resulting products because he owned the factors transformed in the production process. The idea behind production adds nothing to the ownership claim that wasn't already present. So what he's basically saying is, yes, from his point of view of interpreting voluntarism, yes, you have property rights and you can own physical property, and when you turn raw materials into a finished product, it's all yours. But you can't stop somebody else from getting their own raw materials and creating something that's very similar to what you make. And I agree with that, but then when you get into things, so I'll agree with that with diaprim, that if another company can just put the same chemicals together and make the same drug, I mean, and it's beneficial to people, they should be able to.
Sure.
But then when you get into art and things, I think it's a little different, because there's so many inventions that have patents on them that get very silly, or even patents on the silliest example ever was when Amazon.com was trying to, and I forget if they were successful in this or not, we'll have to look this one up. They were trying to patent their one-click ordering thing.
Yeah.
Like, that was our idea.
eBay still uses it, so they can't have been able to.
Yeah, but there was a big lawsuit with Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, and he was like, yo, we invented the single click. So something so basic like that, or, you just made a wrench that had a certain configuration to it, or like something like that somebody else could easily make. It gets quite silly. But then when you get into like a novel or a music album or something, that's something that somebody else might have similar ideas or a similar plot or something, but nobody else is ever going to make the exact same piece of art as you. And I do think that just from sort of common law, natural rights perspective, you do have the right to that.
But with that, I have to make a somewhat of an objective debate, because wouldn't you have to involve government to have any kind of intellectual property at all?
Yeah, there has to be some sort of overseeing body. And I mean, I think that a lot of us who, like, I tend towards a sort of minarchist perspective on certain things. For example, like, I do think we need some sort of law courts. We need, some sort of police force, fire department, things like that. So I think that things like intellectual property, I am not claiming to be an expert on this in any form, or I'm not saying I know exactly what the governing body would look like, but I think there's room for something like that. I mean, I think of myself, like what I do to make money. I work in a warehouse or something, like, and I get paid by the hour. But like somebody who creates a novel or something like that, they don't get paid for all the hours they put into it. No. Their only money comes from when they resell that, when they sell that idea in its finished form. So if somebody else can just come along and there's a lot of things to take into account there.
And using that as well as kind of a segue, the patent system. In this world, we have a lot of people that are saying that capitalism is a problem, but I always say that what the real problem is corporatism. We do not actually have capitalism and haven't had capitalism for over 100 years in society. We can't possibly have capitalism because you can't have capitalism with an overly abundant patent system. You can't have real capitalism with these monopolies created by government, where you see things like Walmart and McDonald's and other big companies get insanely oversized, kind of pushing the little guy out of the market. And a lot of that comes from their advantage in the market, from their monopolies. So I would just have to say, how would you make a difference between capitalism and corporatism? Because in my opinion, they're complete opposites.
Yeah, I mean, corporatism, you have the biggest corporations, the biggest multinationals in bed with the government, and they get to keep their money offshore. They get to exploit all these tax loopholes, and also use sweatshop labor overseas and get away with it, and all that stuff. And then the smaller people, the mom and pop stores, or whatever, they're subjected to high taxes, endless regulations, and a lot of things that make it hard for them to compete with the bigger guys.
Surely a lot like Glenn's shop,
Yeah.
where we might be seeing a huge monopoly in the marijuana market, and that is totally anti-capitalism.
Yeah, and what I believe in basically as a solution to many of society's current problems is getting away from the corporatism and back to the days when, you know, every small town had a main street. So on the main street, you'd have your shoe store, you'd have a butcher, not that these stores don't still exist, but they exist to a much smaller extent than they used to. And back when there used to be more small business and more local economy, or even just people sharing things with each other. Like, you know, the farmer down the road comes and brings you something and you give them something and you barter. It's just things like that. Bringing back Main Street and getting away from Walmart and things like that, that's going to solve a lot of problems. And I think a lot of people are hungry for that these days. People are sick of the corporate crap culture, and they want something more authentic.
And unfortunately, a big part of that culture believes that what the problem is capitalism. When the capitalism is truly the solution to these big corporations' monopolies over people, capitalism is the solution, because corporatism is a form of corporate fascism, which is a very dirty word, but rightly so, because we've seen what fascism has done to society over the years, and we are looking at fascism in Canada today, and in the United States, and throughout the world. And this is a real thing. It doesn't matter if liberals are in power, conservatives, NDP, Green, conservatives. That's another thing.
Neo-conservatives.
Conservatives, if they were really conservative, they would have freed the marijuana market a long time ago.
They wouldn't
and
be
let
against
everybody.
anarchists.
Exactly, and that actually brings me to another point when it comes to capitalism not existing today, is taxation. You cannot have a real capitalist market when small businesses are being taxed to death, and we see that, for example, people who want to sell lemonade, little kids. It's a great thing to teach your kids how to learn how to make profit and run a business. As a little kid, you set them up with a lemonade stand. It's been a staple for 200 years, maybe, and I find it so amazing that most places in North America, it's completely illegal for two reasons to sell lemonade on the streets.
You can't
10
tax
cents,
it.
yeah, you can't tax it, and on top of that, there's a health board, the big health board that we saw try and take down Althea Guibosh, the Bannock lady in Winnipeg a couple of years ago. So how do we get out of this kind of system? And I know this can turn into a really long conversation, which we will continue on a future episode of the WAM Show, but in short, what can we do to get out of this kind of system?
Well, I think people need to vote with their dollars as much as they can. Like, just support the local businesses and the small businesses. Start your own
attempt.
And it's not, for me, it's not even all about capitalism. The core of what I like about the ideals of capitalism is just the fact that we own ourselves and we are allowed to have private property, and we are able to shape our own outcomes through our own actions.
Yeah.
Where you look at socialist societies and communist societies, and especially in the extremes of communist societies, you're not even allowed to own private property. I have a friend who's an older man who grew up in Maoist era China. Yeah. And he's a landlord in Winnipeg now. And he told me just how much it meant to him when he could finally own something. Yeah. Because what he grew up with, you could you didn't have the right to own anything. So the right to self-ownership and to shaping the world with our own actions without the state just breathing down your neck all the time, that's what it's really about to me. I mean, there's things other than using money to interact with each other that can be really good too. There's all kinds of different models. There's voluntarist, socialist models where we can share with each other because we want to.
Voluntary socialism is charity.
We can share food, we can share whatever we want. I mean, when people, I think the key is show people how good voluntarism can be. Yeah. Show people how much you can benefit them and how nice it is to keep the government out of something, and then they get excited.
Yeah.
And they're like various groups that I've been involved with over the years, like Food Not Bombs or things like that. They get people excited because people see, oh, I just got a really great meal and a bunch of free food to take home. No government funding involved, no government regulation involved. I just showed up, and they get excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such an important conversation to have, because when you go up to someone and say you want to exchange, say, I want to give you a pen for this piece of paper, and you say, no, I don't want that.
No, this piece of paper is worth 2 pence.
No, you want my phone and the pen for the piece of paper. I'm like, maybe that's a bit too much. Okay, I put the phone aside. I give you 2 pens. You say, yes. Should the government come in and arrest us for doing that? No. I mean, it's the fair, market of you accept what I want to give you, and I accept what I get for it. And it's just so simple.
But Josh, if the government can't tax a transaction, how will they pay for the football stadium and the Human Rights Museum and $300 lunches at the restaurant that they expense to the taxpayer?
Well, and we'll be talking about that on the next episode, where we will be explaining kind of how to have a fair tax system and how to do these things voluntarily, where we can still have the infrastructure we have today, but without major government involvement. Next week, I'm going to have John Snyson on the show, who just wrote The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us. He just came back from the California Summit for Freedom Force International with the legendary G. Edward Griffin. And he is coming back with a lot to tell us, a very, very intelligent guy. And I urge everyone to go on Amazon and find The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us. Great book. And the answer to you, good people of the world: do you want freedom or do you want slavery? Do you want the ability to do as you please as long as you're not hurting anybody? Or do you want the government breathing down your throat and telling you what you can and can't do? This is such an infuriating point in time to live in, because we are actually facing off against this giant evil that people are begging for. There are so many people around the world that want coercive government, that want people to be controlled.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, my whole thing is that we have every right to control ourselves. No one has a right to control us. And when people come in to my house and say, I'm going to take your TV, I'm going to take your chair, I'm going to take your couch, I say no, and I call the police. But when the government does it, and they take 60% of your wealth through taxes, whether it be income tax, whether it be sales taxes, whether they say that they're not going to raise a tax and they do it anyway, I'm sick and tired of this, good people. It's time that we stand up against this. And when we march against the banks, we're not just talking about how we need the government to lend us more. We need to talk about why we need to be able to control ourselves, control our own environment, control our own property, and get government the hell out of our hair. This is Josh Sigurdsson, World Alternative Media. I'll see you next week. Enjoy a few clips from independent media from around the world.
We're going to liberate some lemons today.
Lemonade, 10 cents. Only 10 cents, guys.
10 cents lemonade! 10 cent lemonade!
Lemonade, boom!
It's really hot out!
10 cents a cup!
Lemonade, 10 cents.
Here they come.
You have a permit, right?
No, sir.
Can't be here.
Hail to the freedom! Woo!
There you are, dearie.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
There's no vending on Capitol grounds. You guys are aware of that?
Free country, ma'am.
And you guys are continuing.
So you want lemonade? Yeah? Did you want a cup?
10 cents for some lemonade, guys.
2 more? Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much for your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would you like a cup as well?
Not for sale.
Yes, don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated by them.
Dream alive. Hello.
you doing? Don't take pictures.
Whoa! Hey!
Out of our face.
Private property,
You got that on camera. Please don't break equipment, ma'am.
Voluntary, completely consensual.
No money. No money. They want to give you something for free, they'll give it to you for free. Do not give them any money.
10 cents. 10 cents.
Don't give them any money.
We are free people.
You are. Have a good afternoon.
This is vending without a permit. Get out of my face. Vending without a permit. So you guys want to be arrested for your cause of lemonade liberation.
Ma'am.
Come liberate the lemons.
Lemonade, 10 cents, guys.
10 cents lemonade.
10 cents lemonade. Come get your 10 cents lemonade while it's nice and cold. Do not use violence. Do not use violence and force against peaceful people.
Well, I have.
Ma'am, this is not an option anymore. You are under arrest.
Leave these people alone.
I'm sorry, you're under arrest.
Leave these people alone. Leave them alone.
I am getting arrested for selling lemonade. Do you guys have services?
Lemonade, 10 cents, guys. We've got a few cups
That's what
left.
happens when you sell lemonade.
I'm selling lemonade.
Is there anything on you that can hurt me?
You people should be ashamed of yourselves. Lemonade is illegal to sell in America. Stop using force against peaceful peoples. I spent 14 months in Baghdad, and I can't even sell lemonade on public property.
Hey, folks, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No victim, not run! No victim, not run! No victim, not run! No victim, not run! Don't talk about these people. Let's argue and go. Martin Luther King and Muhammad Gandhi talked about such things.
Can you back up just a little bit for
We're
me,
not
please?
free to sell
Just back
lemonade.
up, thank you.
Your tax dollars!
Your tax dollars pay to enslave you.
No victim, no crime! You're nothing but kidnappers! Selling lemonade is not a crime. You should be ashamed of yourself.
In this video, Senator Gillibrand of the U.S. Senate and Hillary Clinton campaigner pretty much admitted the fact that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama have funded radical Islamic extremists, including ISIS. Yeah, I know, breaking news. You gotta watch this video. Hillary stood behind her decision with bombing Libya. Is Libya a more stable country or an unstable country because of that decision?
I think Libya is in complete disarray right now, and I think it was equally troubled before the time. Gaddafi, as you know, was a horrible leader who not only harmed Americans, but also engaged in terrorist operations against his own people. So you're talking a horrible situation to an equally horrible situation. But where I think Hillary Clinton did such a great job was explaining these highly complex foreign policy issues in a way that everyday Americans could not only understand where her priorities are, but what she wanted to do to move the country forward and move these very, very high-risk situations in the Middle East forward. And I think she did a great job in doing that.
Well, she sent a lot of arms and weapons down there.
Well, voters in New York love Hillary, so I'm...
Hillary Clinton armed and funded the rebels in Syria and Libya. A lot of those weapons have been found in Al-Qaeda's, Al-Nusra's, and ISIS hands. Was this the right foreign policy decision?
Well, President Obama has decided that he is no longer going to fund that program, so I think we agree it was a program that did not work as intended. It's a program I don't support, so I think his decision today is the right decision.
Now, we have been bombing ISIS for 13 months, and we have made no significant progress at all, and ISIS has been growing. Russia has been bombing them within a few days, and many experts say that they have them on the ropes. What is happening here?
I think it is a highly volatile situation, and I think Secretary Clinton said it best, that we need a collaborative plan. We need to engage the Arab world, we need to engage our allies, and we need to have a long-term solution about how we will defeat ISIL and ISIS and terrorist organizations worldwide. This is not an easy fix. It's not going to be something that's short.
But she funded and armed them.
I think her approach is to create a collaborative effort by NATO, by our allies, and by the Arab world to work together. She wants to engage Russia, and I think she was very clear about her goals, about how she would move forward, and I think that's the only way we can move forward.
How can we move forward when we finance them?
We obviously should never finance ISIL or ISIS or any terrorist organization.
Well, we did, and Hillary did.
I wouldn't say that that was the purpose of the program. The purpose of the program was to arm the moderates. The moderates turned out to be not great fighters, and so we have what we have. So I think President Obama has said this is not the approach that we need to take going forward. I agree with that. I didn't agree with the strategy in the beginning.
Do you think Hillary Clinton called you out on stage?
She really did. That was so nice of her.
What was Hillary's best line today?
How do you think that her personality showed tonight?
Senator Gillibrand did try to effectively dodge and weave me, and the only thing that really saved her is this poor excuse for reporters that were there who were asking her questions like, what's her best personality? Oh, well, how do you think she did? Oh, she shouted you out. And I'm sitting there like, why did the U.S. create ISIS, this terrorist organization that's murdering, butchering, killing innocent human beings in the Middle East? It's a creation of your foreign policy. At least she admitted the fact that that was the case, and she couldn't dodge that. But for God's sake, do you know how difficult it is being in those presidential debates? Support real independent media. Go to wearechange.org/store. Check out the new t-shirts we have so I could actually bear to do more of this somehow just for you and actually ask real questions. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. You're gonna see me a lot more.